So yes, I'm Robert, and I'm going to play some classical piano and talk about it to you. First, I'll tell you I'm doing this, I think I maybe mentioned this last time, I'm doing this project, which is I'm trying to play as much violin music as possible in arrangements for the piano, because that's my plan B. Instead of switching instruments to becoming a violinist, which would take too much time and suffering, I decided to do this project instead. Now, a lot of these pieces, some of them are originally for the piano, but you hear them often on the violin, or some of them are originally vocal, songs, but you hear it often on the violin. So those all count for this thing that I'm doing. Anyway, to start with, I'm going to play. This is a brand new piece for me. It's an unusual thing. It's a Japanese composer, Narita Tamezo, who was a Japanese classical composer at the turn of the 20th century, around that time, early 20th century. And this is called, it's a famous melody, a beautiful melody called the Song of the Seashore. And I'm going to maybe add a little improvisation to it because it's sort of my own arrangement of it for piano. So here it is. Is it on? Yeah, I turned it off again. Something else. This is a piece by Felix Mendelssohn, and it's called May Breezes. It's the nickname for it. It's from the Songs Without Words for solo piano, and you hear it on violin all the time. Fritz Kreisler arranged it for violin. Mendelssohn was interesting because I had a teacher who said that Mendelssohn was more Mozartian than Mozart himself. He was a big-time child prodigy. Actually, Mozart, a lot of the things that were claimed that were written when he was very little, actually his dad wrote them. So it's not to diminish Mozart in any way, I don't mean that. But Mendelssohn was really, truly such a child prodigy. And what I love about Mendelssohn, he's born in 1809, so he's from that generation of Chopin, Liszt, all of them are just, But Mendelssohn is so, honest in a way. It's like he's not hiding anything. It's just he's very genuine in his music. And this piece is a perfect example of that, just very melodic and straightforward. So here's the May Breezes by Felix Mendelssohn. Can you, oops, how about now? You hear the May breezes there. It's a little bit humid, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. No mosquitoes yet, but it's May breezes. It's not. There's a Chopin etude that's nicknamed the Winter Wind, and that's a totally different. I don't remember it really, but the right hand is. It's been a while, but that's an icy sound there. That's a more humid May-ish sound. Anyway, I'm sorry, I tend to go off on these things. So next is a piece by Bach, originally for solo violin. It's a gavotte from, I think the second partita, but I may be wrong. I always forget numbers, exit numbers too. That's why I was almost didn't make it here. But it's but it's from one of the solo suites by Bach for violin. And here it's arranged by none other than the Russian pianist, Sergei Rachmaninoff, composer. And, some people call these arrangements Bachmaninoff because it's Bach and it's Rachmaninoff. Okay, it's just a little bit silly, but I have a story about Rachmaninoff. My grandfather actually met him. It's a true story. My grandfather is no longer living, but he had a big interest in music, and when he was a dental student in Richmond, Virginia in the 1930s, he was an usher at a concert series. And I had some of those programs signed by people. And I'm not saying that the past was better, but it maybe was, because you have people like Fritz Kreisler and Joseph Hoffman and Rachmaninoff. I mean, I don't know what I would give to have been there. But he was told by his boss not to let anyone through these doors, probably like those doors back there. So my grandfather just stood guard, and someone tried to get through. And so my grandfather pushed back, and finally this person, wham, kicked the door open. And it was Rachmaninoff. And Rachmaninoff was a 6.5-foot tall Russian guy with a shaved head. Someone said he looked like an escaped convict. And I tell everyone I have a personal connection with Rachmaninoff because he spoke to my grandfather at that moment. You know what he said? He said, "Get out of my way." True story. Yeah. Here it is. But this is Bach arranged by Rachmaninoff. And the gavotte is a type of Baroque dance, is what it is. So. That's the thing I think about that music. I think Bach is very, this might sound cliche, I just think Bach is very profound. And even though it's a secular dance, Bach was very religious. He would write at the end of his pieces, "It's to the glory of God," everything. And he was a church musician, so that makes sense. But I think that there's some depth there. There's a cellist named Stephen Isserlis, who's an amazing cellist, British cellist. And he plays, of course, the Bach solo cello suites, similar to the solo violin suites, which this is from. And he has this idea, I think he reiterates it from somewhere, that that they're some theorist or someone said that each of these pieces represents a scene either from Jesus' life or from the Bible. Or it's a very interesting idea. So whatever scene that was, it's something joyful and uplifting, maybe Palm Sunday, or I don't know, but it has that joy there. Anyway, it's appropriate to say things. I know we're in a chapel here, so let's see. What was I going to do next? Oh, next I'll do something totally different. I think I did one or some of these, but I don't remember the last time. This is Paganini. Oh, it was very punchy. Niccolo Paganini. I have to say with your hands, it's an Italian name. Niccolo Paganini. He was, of course, a great violinist. Lived in the late 18th century, early 19th century, and was controversial. He was. Some people even thought he was possessed. He was more probably like a rock star of today than a classical musician of today, but very controversial. And Franz Liszt, as a young man, heard him and was just blown away. And the story goes, he locked himself in a room after that to practice for a few years, like crazy. And then he emerged as Franz Liszt, and he arranged Paganini's things. I'm trying to do all of his arrangements, but it's like these housing building projects. It's not happening all at once. I don't have all the houses built. And we bought a house in a new development, that's why I'm saying that. So I'm going to play two of them today. This first one is the very famous La Campanella, also have to say with your hands, which means little bell. And you can hear the little bell sounds. Another thing it sounds to me like is a buzzing fly or something. At times it shouldn't, I don't want it to be obnoxious like that, but it has that feeling of some kind of buzzing. It has that effect. So here is La Campanella, based on, this is of course Liszt's arrangement of Paganini, and it's based on the last movement of the second violin concerto of Paganini. So here it is. Yeah, so, all right. Crazy music. Here's another Paganini arrangement of Liszt. I forgot to mention this is Busoni's version of Liszt's version of Paganini, so it's changed a few notes, Busoni and then. So this next one is interesting in that that arrangement is nothing like the original. It's changed so much. I mean, even the form, it's almost like a theme and variations here. But the one I'm going to play now is pretty much verbatim what Paganini wrote. And the range of the violin is only about, I don't know, here to here. It's not the whole, it doesn't actually have those notes down there, the violin. So same with this piece, it's all up here. This is, of course, it's based on the first of the 24 Caprices by Paganini, and you know, I couldn't get an image for this piece. I usually, when I learn a piece, something clicks for me. For that, it was the bell sound, and maybe the flies too, the mosquitoes or whatever. But for this one, there was nothing clicked for me. So I asked my wife, who's a musician, pianist, what is this piece for you? And I played the opening for her like this, you know. I said, it just sounds like an exercise to me. And she said, let me turn this on. She said, yeah, I picture our kitten. We have a kitten, 2 cats, bigger cat and a kitten. Playing with this toy that he has. It's a merry-go-round toy. It goes around and he whacks it and it comes around and it's a very obnoxious toy, I have to admit. And she said that's what she imagined. She doesn't love Paganini that much. I do, I think he's great. And she said that, and so once she told me that, that's all I can imagine with this piece, is my kitten whacking this toy. And it's not, you know, I'm not just being silly here. I think that the quality of humor, of wit, and a sarcastic wit, is what makes Paganini, including in the last piece. There's a quality of mocking sometimes. So anyway, sarcasm would be the word. So here it is. And cats are sarcastic creatures in a way. So. Another really crazy one for the fingers. Here's the one that's more melodic. This is, of course, this is an odd or an unknown version of a very well-known piece. This is the "Oh Danny Boy," great Irish folk tune, arranged by the oddball Australian composer Percy Grainger. I think last time I did Percy Grainger's arrangement of Fauré, something by Fauré, but this is "Oh Danny Boy." Why was Percy Grainger an oddball? Well, you can look him up. He was pretty nutty, but there are some of those in music. There's some, oddballs. But at any rate, and not always the best person, but it's a beautiful arrangement. And "Oh Danny Boy" is just this iconic Irish folk melody. And I read somewhere about the text. What is the text about? And some people think that the text is about. It's a father singing about his son going off to the First World War. That's probably what it's about. So here is the "Oh Danny Boy" in this classical piano version by Percy Grainger. speaking of folk music, some more folk-based things. These are some unusual pieces, and I love them very, very much. So I hope you will too. These are by Bartok, Villa Bartok, and they're called the Romanian folk dances. So Bartok and his friend Kodai, another Hungarian composer, they went out when they were young and collected folk song with an early version of the tape recorder, magnetic tape. And they recorded, regular people singing folk songs. And for both of them, and of course I'm going to play Bartok now, so especially Bartok, folk music, it seeped into their styles. These are not, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure these are not actual folk melodies. These are Bartok's compositions. But folk music sort of breathed, it sank, it marinated into his style, so to speak. So, and Romania, of course, was one of the places that he traveled to collect folk music. And Bartok was a great man. I mean, he not only a great musician. I think the two, should go together. Percy Grainger maybe didn't, but or Wagner sometimes in some ways, but not the best man, but a great composer. So, but anyway, Bartok, he came to the U.S. He escaped. I mean, when the Nazis took power, he left Europe and came to live in New York. And the Juilliard School immediately gave him a job to teach composition there, so a professor. He turned them down. Why? Because he said, you cannot teach someone how to compose truly. I mean, the guy was, I don't know why he did that, but I understand what he's saying. And he worked, I think he did sort of odd jobs. He worked as a librarian, and this is Bela Bartok, one of the greatest composers ever, and he lived in a very modest apartment. I used to live near it. I'd walk by there, and I'd sort of, when no one was around, I would sort of salute it. Hi, Mr. Bartok. But it's really sad, he had leukemia, and he was in very bad health. And I had a professor who said, this is a terrible story in a way, funny, terrible in a way, that this student in the class hadn't done an assignment. They said, well, I just, didn't feel very good. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you a story about Bartok. He said, Bartok, in that building right there where he lived, was bedridden with leukemia, and he wrote his third piano concerto from bed. So, and you're telling me you can't write. I mean, it's kind of harsh way to say it, but that's the commitment of Bartok. One more tidbit, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure this is the case, that one of Bartok's sons, Peter Bartok, was, if they came to the U.S. in the 30s, or then in the 40s, Peter served in the Second World War and was in Iwo Jima, was a war hero. So it's just, but anyway, Bartok is great, and I hope you like these. These are odd pieces. Bartok was a modernist composer. A lot of his music, it's like abstract painting, and these not quite so much, but there's some moments, where you hear some, some gnarly things, just part of the style. It's like sometimes food with a lot of spice, it's not for everyone, but if you like spicy food, then you really like it. So I'm one of those people. Yeah. Yeah, it's it's that music, that folk music, is gypsy music. Forgot to mention maybe, and it's also there's a lot of klezmer music in there because that was also the music of Romania. Anyways, let's do some French things. Now I'm going to play. If I have time, I don't even know what time it is. Is it?
It's 3:45.
Okay, so okay. Because I lose track. Music's all about time, and lose track of it sometimes. So here is a very short piece. The La Fille aux cheveux de lin, the girl with the flaxen hair. Blondie, that's what it means. Debussy wrote this for a soprano in Paris at the time with blonde hair, apparently, and it's from the Preludes, Book 1, originally for piano, but you hear it on the violin or other instruments as well. And it's just, the way it develops, it progresses. It's like a stream of consciousness. And that was the thing in literature at the time, that it doesn't develop the way Beethoven develops, for example, logically. Not that Beethoven's always logical, but you get what I mean. But it's the same with the literature of its stream of consciousness. It doesn't have a normal plot, outline. It just goes here and there the way our mind works. And that's how I hear this piece. It's like an improvisation of Debussy, written out. Here it is. So now,
Robert, who was the composer of that piece?
that was Debussy, Claude Debussy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry if I forgot to say, and he was an impressionist composer. He didn't like that word, but just like the impressionist paintings, everyone called him an impressionist composer. So one more French piece. This one is much more high energy, It's by Camille Saint-Saëns, and it's called Étude en forme de valse, which means study in the form of a waltz. Now, Saint-Saëns was a little bit earlier than Debussy, and they did not like each other, let's put it that way. They were just a different value system, Saint-Saëns was more influenced by Liszt, we heard earlier. So Saint-Saëns, like Mendelssohn and Mozart, was a big-time child prodigy. And he was also, I don't know how he did it, he was an animal rights activist of all things. He was an archaeologist, a mathematician, a philosopher, a traveler, all of these things. I don't know how he found time for that, and a great composer. So the story about Saint-Saëns is this: he was 10 years old and he gave his first recital in Paris. And at the end of this long recital, he asked the audience, which one of the 32 Beethoven sonatas do you want me to play? I have them all memorized. What a brat to do that. You know, this little kid saying that. I'm joking here, but he apparently could do it, so great for him. But one of my favorite composers, I used to not appreciate him. As I thought about Liszt in the past, it's a very prevailing attitude in music, in the music, especially academia, that Saint-Saëns and Liszt, they're superficial music. I don't agree. I think that Saint-Saëns in particular, he's comic, especially this piece, and it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of wit in it. Maybe Bach and Beethoven are more serious, and I heard it put like this about this piece. Someone saying, because there's a violin version of this, and so there's a violinist saying, when you play Brahms or Bach or Beethoven, those are like giant monuments of music. This is like some little town with windy streets, and it has its own charm to it. It's different, and I think that's why I think Saint-Saëns sometimes is looked at as this kind of second rate. He was first rate. So anyway, I love this piece, and it's just a lot of fun. It's very salon. Salon is this is like a salon. It's the 19th century gatherings of friends in small settings. And anyway, the piece is almost a little bit over the top too, in a funny way. Not almost, it is over the top. So.
So, how about a couple short gospel pieces? Here is Why Me, Lord? It's a Chris Christopherson song. Very beautiful. So, somewhat country in its flavor. So. Maybe some upbeat things. This is an old Pentecostal tune, which, oh yeah.
And just so you know, it's
Oh.
4:02,
Oh.
so you might wanna, no, it's
Oh,
fine,
okay.
you wanna wrap it up, maybe one or two more songs?
Yeah, I
or
could do
whatever?
maybe one.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask you, do you want to hear Oh Happy Day, or do you want to hear this Jesus on the Main Line, that Pentecostal one, which is a little bit like boogie woogie-ish? What do you prefer? Or do you want to hear something, do you know the one, Jesus Hold My Hand? It's a Albert E. Brumley song.
You can play any of those Jesus songs, and I know some folks in here that will be nothing but happy.
Well, okay. So,
Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
so I'll play the Pentecostal one. It kind of is the best of both worlds. So, okay. The Pentecost. I didn't grow up Pentecostal. I grew up in New Jersey, so all this gospel stuff I just picked up living here. But some people say, "Oh no, that's boogie woogie." And the church musicians, they say, "Nah, we did it first." So, yeah. Boy, well, that was a workout. Thank you.
Your hands must be ready for a massage now.
No, they're okay. It's the arms that are. Yeah, I got this.
Could I ask you a question?
Oh yeah, sure.
If you something like Paganini is written for violin,
Mhm.
and I don't know anything about the violin, but
Neither do I.
what would be the problem of playing on piano, and what would be the difference? What would you have to do?
Yeah.
And does the music look the same?
For the second one I did, it looks almost the same, and the list did very little to it. For the first one, it's quite different because that's the left hand is being like the orchestra in that one, but the mechanism of the violin is so different. So this one, I'm missing this. It's awkward on the piano. On the violin, it's a seesaw motion with the bow. I'm not saying it's easier, but this is like fishing with a, I don't know, with a chopstick or something. It's really hard. I don't know why I thought it, but
Repeated that on the violin, it's all back and forth.
yeah, it's all with the bow. So
And you're like this.
I'm like this. I'm just like pecking it with my finger. So I think just the whole mechanism of it is different, but it does work well. I mean, in translation, I call this also a translation program because pretty much everything is translated from the violin. But yeah, that's a good point. That I think just the mechanism of the instruments differ. So yeah, with the bow. But yeah, well, thank you,
Robert,
Mary.
that was fabulous.
Oh,
Honestly,
thanks.
I love the music and I love the stories that go in between. I think that really adds to the understanding of the music. So your technique is really beautiful. It
Well,
really
thank you,
is.
thank
I
you.
thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
So
having
we
me.
definitely need to come back, right?
So you don't wanna hear me singing?
I
No,
do.
we
I
don't want to
can't.
hear you singing, Kay.
I can't sing at all. You know.
Do you play other instruments?
Well, kazoo.
He plays the kazoo.
I had this joke when I was in music school. People would tell me, "So what do you play?" The kazoo. Dead serious, you know. Really? You're kidding? No, I'm serious. I'm one of the greatest kazoo players in the world. In fact, and I'm traveling. Yeah, but it was a whole. But I don't play any other instruments.
Well, you're really phenomenal, honestly. That's just, it's just, even if you couldn't hear, just to watch what you're
Oh.
doing, it's just, it's wonderful. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
It is.
Thank you for
Thank you.
being here so much.
The only thing I saw was that he didn't invite me to come in.
Yeah, you were invited to come in here, therefore you're here.
I mean, to do.
Oh, to join
Oh,
him?
you wanted-
Yeah, I wanted to join.
Please.
And he didn't invite me.
Wow, that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
You
know. I was.
I know, I didn't, well,
Next time.
it's a wonderful thing, that's good.
Thank
I
you.
was very pleased with that.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to snag you and talk to you about calendar.
Oh yeah, sure.
for
I've
moving
got. I
forward,
think I
so,
have it. So.
um,
And thanks for the mic.
Yeah, that actually works pretty well.
It does.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right.
So I better close this
All
up.
right.
Close up the shop.
The this instrument, when he first came, can you hear me?
Oh, I think I turned it off.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it back on.